All right, guys, this one caught me by surprise, and I won't lie. Out of all the people that I've seen step down from the Trump cabinet over the last 2 years, this one is my favorite. Tulsi Gabbard. She is stepping down as head of Trump's intelligence. This is huge. Tulsi Gabbard has always been a bought and paid for by foreign governments right-wing populist. Even when she was running as a Democrat, there were a lot of things about her that were massive red flags, and the idea of her running our intelligence agencies has always been perhaps the most concerning thing coming out of the Trump administration when it comes to foreign policy and safety. I guess besides Trump's insane economic policy putting us at odds with our allies, but that's besides the point. Tulsi Gabbard is not someone who it is safe to have leading American safety and ensuring that foreign powers are not having too much influence or, hell, even having leaks into American government secret information, that kind of stuff. Hell, even just leaks of Americans' data. These are all things we're worried about, and I don't trust any of that info with Tulsi, which is why her stepping down is simultaneously certainly something I'm happy about. It's certainly worth celebrating, but it's also a little bit worrying. Why is Tulsi Gabbard stepping down from this position? Is it Trump? Is it because she's done all she planned to do from that position? It's really odd. I don't know anything about this story so far. I'm learning about it with you guys, so let's dive right into it and find out what the deal is with this, because this is a fresh off the presses headline.
Of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is resigning after about 15 months in the role of the Director of National Intelligence.
Yeah, we want to get straight to the White House and bring in Kevin Liptak with the latest. What are we hearing right now?
Yeah, and this is a significant departure. We do now understand that Tulsi Gabbard has informed President Trump of her decision to resign from the administration. And what she is telling associates is that she is stepping down because her husband is confronting a rare form of cancer. And so that is her rationale.
Listen, guys, I hate to say this, but fate W, okay? There is no scenario in which Tulsi Gabbard stepping down from this position is a bad thing. Now, to be fair, I kind of extra hate Tulsi. She's sort of like the ultimate brain-dead populist figurehead. Like so many of the most brain-dead populist people that have claimed to be on the left were massive Tulsi stans. Famously, back during the 2020 primaries, I remember Schuonhead was one of Tulsi's biggest shooters. And that should honestly just tell you everything you need to know about the kind of people who bought Tulsi's fake progressive bit back in 2020 when she ran as a Democrat. And why I wasn't even slightly surprised when she pivoted to being on Fox News and being in Trump's administration. Didn't she leak classified info to Cuba? I wouldn't fucking be surprised, but to Cuba of all places would shock me. That sounds like incompetence more than malice, which is what I am, accusing Tulsi of having.
Stepping back from this very, very critical role at a very critical moment as the U.S. Remains at war with Iran, as President Trump weighs restarting the bombing campaign inside that country. This will be a significant departure for the administration. And so Tulsi Gabbard...
Like, do you have any idea how worrying it was to me that the people who blame everything on American intelligence organizations all voted for this lady, and then she got put in charge of American intelligence? Like, when I found out that was going to be her position, I wanted to face desk.
We're telling the president today that she does plan to resign and that she's stepping aside for this ultimately very personal reason, which is her husband's health. Now, that being said, this has been quite a tumultuous tenure, I think, for Tulsi Gabbard over the course of this second Trump administration. There had been clear points throughout the last year and a half when she did seem to diverge with what the president was trying to do. You know, she came to this job with a...
Speaking as a streaky-haired woman, she gives us streaky-haired women a bad name. Listen, the best thing about Tulsi Gabbard is her hair streak, okay? I'm very glad that she has made that a, I guess, acceptable style for a politician in a serious position. You know, if Tulsi Gabbard did it, then anyone can do it in the future, and no one can say shit.
Very clear anti-war background. You know, she herself is a veteran. She talked before she was in this job when she was a congresswoman from Hawaii about not starting foreign wars, specifically about not starting wars with Iran. And over the course of this conflict, she really did not have a very visible role whatsoever in confronting the Iran threat. She had been essentially cut out of some of those conversations.
This might be the most Tulsi image I've ever seen. Oh my god. Tulsi Gabbard at the White House podium giving a press conference about the creation of the Democrat Russia hoax. Oh my god, dude. For those that don't know, if you've ever heard like Russiagate, the Russia hoax, any of that stuff from Republicans, I hope you know all that shit was real. It was so real, in fact, that like something around 4 or 5 of Trump's like high-ranking campaign officials were sent to prison for colluding with the Russian government. Trump's lawyer went to prison for it, in fact. He had a whole roster of fall guys, including his fucking attorney, that went to prison for him. The only thing that couldn't be proved was that Trump was aware of the conspiracy that his campaign was doing with Russia. That's it. His campaign officials were sent to prison over colluding with Russia to get Trump into office. The only reason Trump didn't go to prison was they could not conclusively prove that Donald Trump knew his campaign was doing that. That is the only reason. So that's the Russia quote-unquote hoax that you might have heard of, or Russiagate, as you might have heard it called.
You know, the president did seem to task her with some different roles. You'll remember she was down in Fulton County, Georgia, when the FBI was raiding a voting office there. It was sort of a strange sight to see the DNI down in Georgia when the FBI was conducting that raid. She also put out a report sort of downplaying the role of election meddling from Russia. Both of those, I think, meant to put her in the president's good graces. But despite all of that, there had been these clear tensions, and so now we're understanding that she is going to be leaving the administration. We do not yet know at this point who may replace her. This is a very, very critical job. You know, it was created in the aftermath of...
I totally forgot they were supposed to arrest Obama. Yeah, do you remember they were supposed to arrest Hillary too? Remember when Trump ran on lock her up, and had entire, like, thousands of people, crowds of thousands of people chanting lock her up because Hillary Clinton dared to run against him? He never followed through on it, but it, like, never forget that, like, initially, from the get-go, Trump was running on, I'm gonna send the person running against me to prison if I win. Vote for me so that happens. And Americans were like, yeah!
9/11 to try and coordinate all of the government's intelligence stream. So at a particularly a tense moment, it will be critical to get this job filled. But at least for now, Tulsi Gabbard saying that she will no longer be the director of national intelligence.
Yeah, especially as the United States is at war in the Middle East, it's notable that the Director of National Intelligence is departing.
I also just want to talk about sort of the policy positioning of where Tulsi Gabbard was in terms of Director of National Intelligence. We heard
right-wing grifter bought out by the Russian government is where she stood.
Points that debate sort of, I guess not so much debate, a difference in stated position between what we heard from the president at times, sometimes it was Steve Witkoff, in terms of the ability for Iran to get a nuclear weapons grade weapon. And then she would often say that the capability was obliterated. I wonder for you, who just follows this space so closely, what did you see the most as most significant in her dynamic as DNI here?
You know, I think that the primary issue was that she just didn't really deliver substance and kind of a purpose for the administration from an intelligence perspective, and that John Ratcliffe at CIA did. And so the contrast between them and the ability of them to represent the intelligence in a way that, you know, I think that Director Ratcliffe...
TLDR, she didn't do jack shit. At least nothing good for the American people in her tenure, that's for sure.
Is just more artful in threading the needle, and then behind the scenes providing really value added, because the CIA has that value added, right? They have deeper analytic core, and then they have the operational capabilities that, of course, ODNI doesn't have. And so I think that, you know, it's the divergence of views that were very core to who Tulsi Gabbard is and was that never really synced. and then just, the value added or lack thereof.
Wow. I'm also curious, Beth.
It's wild that like we just don't have laws against doing this. Like it's not like they would change anything, but it's kind of crazy that we don't even have laws against this. Having like government officials lie about things that have been confirmed to be true by the government officials in the past. Like it's crazy that this level of contradiction between administrations is like allowed. It's mind-blowing to me. So for one, denying the Russia stuff is crazy. Hold on. Yeah, so what Russiagate is actually, and they'll never call it this because if you knew this is what it's called, you'll Google it and you'll actually find out what they're talking about when they reference this. But the Mueller report, the Mueller investigation. The Robert Mueller Special Counsel investigation was a criminal investigation into associates of 45th U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin regarding Russian interference in the 2016 United States elections, and was conducted by Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller from May 2017 to March 2019. It was also called the Russia investigation, the Mueller probe, and Mueller investigation. The investigation focused on 4 points: Russian interference in the 2016 United States elections, Trump associates and their connections to Russian officials and espionage, possible obstruction of justice by Trump and his associates, and potential conspiracy or coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia. The investigation did not focus on collusion, because collusion is not a specific offense or theory of liability found in the United States Code, nor is it a term of art in federal criminal law. So that whole collusion thing that they use, that's a buzzword the right popularized to take meaning from this whole thing. While the investigation found no evidence that President Trump or any of his aides coordinated with the Russian government's 2016 election interference, there was insufficient evidence of a criminal conspiracy. Members of the campaign were indicted, including National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and the chair of the Trump presidential campaign, Paul Manafort. The investigation resulted in charges against 34 individuals and 3 companies, 8 guilty pleas, and a conviction at trial. The report did not reach a conclusion about possible obstruction of justice by Trump, citing a Justice Department guideline that prohibits the federal indictment of a sitting president. So this is when they blocked it. If you guys remember, the Supreme Court got together, they made sure that this investigation couldn't go any further, and this got killed, and then Trump started claiming this was all a big hoax, and that's why it never went anywhere. However, Attorney General William Barr pointed to 10 episodes of potential obstruction. The investigation was created by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Former FBI Director Mueller was chosen to lead due to a shortage of Senate-confirmed U.S. attorneys. The dismissal of James Comey was a factor in the decision to use a special counsel. The Mueller investigation took over the FBI's investigation. Crossfire Hurricane. The Mueller investigation's scope included allegations of links and or coordination between the Russian government and our official blah, blah, blah. So yeah, this whole thing, this is what Tulsi Gabbard has been sweeping for Trump on for like almost 10 years now. Like even when she was a Democrat, she was sweeping for Trump on this, trying to say that like the Democrats were wasting their time by trying to do this investigation, as if it's like the Democrats are doing the investigation and it's not just the law being enforced and investigations happening as they're supposed to do when a crime has been committed. It's like she's been sweeping for him for a decade. That's my point. And now she's doing the same sweeping right here on stage for Trump, and she's done it to the point where she's now leaving her position, and she'll only be remembered now as the lady who swept for Donald Trump's collusion with Russia.
About the most recent incident that drew criticism from both parties regarding her visit to this elections office in Georgia. She's obviously, as DNI, focused on coordinating overseas intelligence, but there she is in Fulton County at a domestic FBI search of this elections office, reportedly putting President Trump on the phone with FBI agents as well, raising concerns.
She is literally Donald Trump's like direct figure that he can speak to and manipulate to control all of our intelligence agencies to make sure that they're not finding anything that could be bad for him. Like she's showing up to the site of the raid to be like, hey Trump, they want to search this room, should we let them? And Trump could be like, no, don't let them search that room. And she's literally their director. She can say like, no, don't search that room.
About political interference. The backdrop, of course, President Trump's claims about the 2020 election and there being fraud in Georgia. And then beyond that, there were these conflicting explanations about why specifically the DNI would even be there. I mean, what does that tell you about her time as DNI and the ways in which her relationship with the president evolved into her work?
Yeah, I think that, the DNI Gabbard was in search of a mission that was of value to the president. And, there was this kind of joke.
She was in search of a mission that was of value to the president. Translation, she was useless and trying desperately to find a way to make herself indisposable.
Very sad joke from her perspective, where her initials, DNI, stood for do not invite to all these foreign policy meetings. And you would see that she was completely absent from Mar-a-Lago during the Venezuela operation, during the Iran operation. And so she was in.
Remember, she spent a lot of her campaigning, demonizing intelligence agencies and demonizing any American action with foreign policy. So, of course, she never showed up to any of these meetings. And of course, she doesn't care about the safety and security of America. That's the last concern she has. If anything, she's getting paid to specifically weaken America's security.
Search of a mission that was of value, and this election fraud mission was something where she jumped in to take up that mantle. There are, from my perspective, having been the number 3 at ODNI in my last government position, I believed that her presence was counter to her authorities. I don't think that the DNI has authority for this kind of engagement on domestic election issues, even when there is a potential foreign nexus. And in the case of Georgia, in all of the years, remember, this is many, many years, there has never been an accusation or an inkling of foreign activity related to that outcome. And so, it was just completely off the charts, weird. and then, just from my perspective and from many others, beyond what a director of national intelligence should be doing.
Let's go to Brian Todd. Brian.
You ever notice that Trump, when he's just kind of in a neutral state, he kind of looks like he makes the same face. He has the same resting face as Jabba the Hutt. I'm not even trying to like roast him here at all. It's just he kind of just looks just the eyes kind of drooping a little bit, and his mouth is kind of angled a little bit down, it's just he's in the state of relaxedness that only a Hutt crime lord could reach. He's in a state of pure relaxation right now. It's probably just boredom. He's probably just really bored.
Director of National Intelligence should be doing.
Let's go to Brian Todd. Brian, obviously this was a tumultuous tenure, and before she served in the administration.
Bro, if Trump has a stroke, there's no shot we're going to be able to tell. His face is so droopy. There's no fucking way we're able to tell if he has a stroke. Do you genuinely think you'd be able to tell if one side of Trump's face was paralyzed one day? You just assume you'd be like, man, what a weird looking fucker. You wouldn't even think that he looks weird today.
Her entire political career up until 2022, she was a Democrat, and she was sort of non-interventionist. She spoke out against U.S. foreign policy. Then in 2024, she flipped to the Republican Party and served the president, obviously, who has been more aggressive, not only in Iran, but in Venezuela and in Cuba as well. It's notable that her vision of U.S. foreign policy not exactly aligning with President Trump's.
That's right, Boris and Omar, that is correct. And it is unusual for a director of national intelligence to leave office, basically at the height of tensions with Iran. And as this conflict has not come to a full resolution as of yet, it's striking that she's leaving during that period. And again, not only, to emphasize what Kevin said, he emphasized that she's been controversial in a number of ways. As what Kevin mentioned, when she went down to Georgia in January, taking a look at what was going on there and trying to help with this investigation into alleged voter fraud in Georgia, that really turned a lot of heads simply because that was not supposed to be her role as the director of national intelligence. But also, guys, remember after the the war began in late February, the administration, of course, attempted to justify going to war with Iran by claiming that Iran was rebuilding its nuclear program and that it posed an imminent threat following those strikes in June of 2025. The administration claiming that Iran was rebuilding its program and posed an imminent threat. Well, she had remarks to the Senate Intelligence Committee less than a month after the war began, saying as a result of Midnight Hammer, that was the operation in June, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. She then essentially almost contradicting the administration's claim that Iran had posed an imminent threat. So she got in a bit of hot water for that. Again, that was a hearing in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee.
God, these people in Trump's cabinet have to stop thinking that they're allowed to ever contradict him. Like, when their ass is on the line, they're being like, they're being sworn to oath. They've sworn to truthfulness in court. They're under oath, and they are on TV and being questioned. These people need to stop thinking they're allowed to contradict Trump in those situations. Even if it means lying under oath, you gotta lie for Trump. You gotta sweep for Trump. You gotta back up everything Trump says, even if it means lying under oath, or you're gonna lose your job. That is how the Trump administration works. And it's so funny to me when someone in Trump's cabinet forgets that little detail and thinks that they're like not his slave for a second when they're being interviewed or questioned, and they say something that Trump wouldn't like, thinking Trump would ever let them get away with it. That is just the funniest thing to me. Like, the people who have bent the knee to Trump think that they have anything left. They think they have any freedom or autonomy in the position they're in. No, your job is to defend Trump and to dick ride Trump and to back up everything Trump says no matter what, even if it means putting your ass in the line and breaking the law, because that's what you signed up for when you got into Trump's cabinet. This happened to Pam Bondi, She didn't realize that just because she'd spent years sweeping for him and covering for him, that doesn't mean she gets one free pass now if she ever contradicts him or does something that upsets him. If anything, her continued loyalty makes the further loyalty even more expected. That eventual perceived betrayal that Trump will experience when you dare to go against a word he says is only going to incur more rage if you've been hyper loyal to him in the past. That's how it works when you're dealing with someone like Donald Trump. So once again, will always be really funny to me when these people destroy their own political careers under Trump because they think they're allowed to go against him in the slightest way. That'll always be funny. That'll always be funny to me. And I hope you guys see the humor in it as well. But here's the thing that I've really been thinking on lately. The right was so successful in reaching people and propagandizing to people because one thing they did so well, effortlessly, in fact, was flooding the zone, as they call it. A nonstop stream of commentary and news coverage from a right-wing perspective, completely flooding the zone, as they say, so you're drowning in it. And I feel like covering stuff like this, even if it's not the most wild story ever, because I don't think many people care about Tulsi Gabbard that much anymore, I do think it's still important because this is how the left matches the right's energy. This is how we flood the zone. Covering stories like this. Covering stories like Trump's hand and neck seeming to melt because he's got these weird blood bruises on his skin. These stories flood the zone with anti-Trump and anti-Trump administration rhetoric. And I think on its own, that is a good thing. So anytime the Trump administration shows weakness, we're going to talk about it, just like we did this time.